Yo, so how's everybody doing? It's a long day and shit, right? Um, so, yeah, my name's Ysiad Ferreiras. I'm the CEO at Hustle. We're a company that actually goes and using the same exact math equations that you put people through to figure out whether it's worth contacting them or not, changes up the math so that people get included, right? But the reason I'm here is because it's a diversity and inclusion conference sort of situation, and they want me to talk about where I come from because it's very unusual for people who come from where I come from to be doing what I'm doing. Surprisingly enough, given what the stats are, right? So I'm Dominican, from the Bronx, single-parent household, have a criminal record, English is my second language, blah, 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 right? And these things are actually quite common. So in the US, there's nearly 13.6 million single parents raising over 21 million children. That means that nearly 1 in 3 children is raised in a single-parent household. 17.5% of households are led by a single parent in the US, right? So it's actually pretty common, right? We treat it like it's this huge disability, huge disadvantage, but it's actually quite common, right? Also, I grew up on welfare. Well, what percentage of children in the US grew up on public assistance? 65% of children live in households that are on public assistance. English is my second language. How many children in the US grow up with English as a second language? Well, apparently 21% nationally, so 1 in 5 kids. 44% of children in California have English as a second language. What else we got? I have a criminal record. 70 million Americans have a criminal record. That's 1 in 3 adults. And 1 in 3 California adults, disproportionately people of color, have a conviction or have a conviction or arrest record that can show up in an employment background check, right? So these are actually all like quite common things. And despite that, I think the reason that it's a diversity and inclusion issue is because the percentage of people who show up in the workforce, especially at these like top tier tech companies, right? Like, so the company I'm at, we've got a Series A, we're like 60 people, we make a few $1 million a year. Typically, the percentage of people who come from untraditional backgrounds who are there, for example, Hispanics, less than 5% of tech professionals are Hispanic, right? So what I want to talk about with you all after I share those stats is what does the journey look like, right? And how can we help other people just embrace that story and share that with other people so that you can make a more inclusive work environment, right? Because what typically happens is, especially if you can hide some of your disadvantages, you choose to. And when you choose to hide these disadvantages, these things that are untraditional, it makes it so that other people around don't know that they can reach out, or they think that they're alone when they're really not, right? If 1 in 3 people have a criminal record, but nobody's talking about it, then if you hit it on your background check, or actually now in California you still can, New York you can't. There's a few places you can't do criminal background checks before you interview them, but you can before you choose to hire them. You feel like you're always hiding something. The thing is, you don't have to. So, in my thing of using your success story to inspire others to thrive in tech and shit, it's mostly, hey, just talk about it really openly. Let people know that it's a thing so that they can reach out to you and know that your workplace is a place that's welcoming to them, right? Get people in senior leadership to admit this stuff. I know for me personally, it was something that I hid until I was basically until this job I came public. Once I was like, well, I'm CEO of this company, like, fuck it, That's really where I was at. But before that, I was hiding it. So I worked in the hedge fund space, and I hid it when I was doing that. I started some fair trade importing companies, and I was raising investor money for it and stuff. I totally hid it. I wasn't going to be like, yeah, so I used to rob people. And if you do a criminal background check, you'll see robbery in the first degree, assault with a deadly weapon, and possession of stolen property, right? Like, it's like not a good look when you're trying to do your like feel-good, fair trade import, investing kind of situation, right? So I hid it, right? But now I'm coming public with it. And what's interesting about this to me, and hopefully to you as well in the audience, is just that it's very common. So I see there's like 3 minutes and 20 seconds left. So I was thinking about going into some, some stuff about privileges and stuff like that, but I'll pass on that, and instead just go into how something that isn't really talked about much, but is absolutely necessary to be able to make these kinds of moves, is continually redefining how it is that you define yourself. So for a while, I defined myself as somebody who, grew up poor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then at some point or another, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And all the compartmentalization that I did when I was younger, all the ways that I would flip everything, like, oh, okay, well, I don't have money for food. Well, that's cool because I could just join the wrestling team, and that's actually an advantage because I'll make weight. All those little things like that where you just like spin them to be a positive. At some point, you've got to process all those things. And without many of us having mentors explaining to us, like, hey, look, when you're no longer an at-risk person, you should probably get a shrink and like talk to them about stuff and like process the things. It just doesn't happen, right? But not doing that ends up holding you back at some point. So I think that's, for any of you in the audience who are also going through a thing where you like, where you pulled the Drake, like bottom now you're here kind of thing. That's the thing you're going to want to do. Use that health insurance, mental health coverage, and like talk to people and shit. I can refer you to people. So that's a thing. But yeah, mostly it's just you always have to keep redefining yourself and admitting to yourself that some of the things just aren't applicable to you anymore, right? Like there was a time when it wasn't as relevant that I had a criminal record. What was more relevant is that I'm one of the few people on the planet who can take a company from $0 to several $1 million in revenue in a short period of time, right? And all of a sudden that starts becoming a lot more useful and more relevant to people than some shady shit I did in my past. And so that's a thing. But yeah, the theme of this thing was using your story of success to inspire others to thrive in tech. I hope that's helpful. But that's really it. That's all I got. We got a minute left. We good? Yeah.